Imagine living 7 to 10 years longer than your neighbors just by changing how you eat, move, and rest. That's not a fantasy. It's the reality for Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, one of the world's 5 blue zones where people routinely live past 100. Today, we're diving into the Loma Linda longevity phenomenon, specifically how mobility exercises after 50, anti-inflammatory plant-based diets, and biblical rest rhythms create extraordinary health outcomes. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the science behind these practices and have actionable strategies to potentially add years to your own life. Let me bring in someone who's been studying this fascinating intersection of faith and health. What makes the Adventist approach so uniquely effective?
The numbers are honestly staggering. According to the Adventist health studies conducted at Loma Linda University, Adventist men live 7.3 years longer than other white California men, and Adventist women live 4.4 years longer than their counterparts. But here's what's really remarkable. Vegetarian Adventists live an additional 1.5 to 2 years longer than their meat-eating Adventist counterparts.
Wait, so even within the Adventist community, the vegetarians are outliving the meat eaters?
Exactly. And we're talking about one of the most comprehensive health studies ever conducted. Over 96,000 participants tracked for decades. The research shows Adventists have 40% lower death rates from all cancers for men and 24% lower for women. Lung cancer rates are 79% lower.
Those are incredible statistics. But let's back up. What exactly is a blue zone, and how did Loma Linda end up being one?
Blue zones are communities where people live exceptionally long lives. We're talking about places with the highest concentration of centenarians in the world. Dan Buettner, who led the National Geographic research, identified 5 of these zones globally, and Loma Linda made the list specifically because of its high population of Seventh-day Adventists.
So what is it about the Adventist lifestyle that's creating these results? Is it just the diet?
It's actually a comprehensive approach. The research points to several key factors: their predominantly plant-based diet, regular exercise, strict abstinence from smoking and alcohol, and here's something really interesting: their practice of Sabbath rest. Dan Buettner believes that weekly Sabbath rest contributes significantly to their better health and longer lifespan.
Sabbath rest affecting longevity? That's fascinating. But before we dive into that, let's talk about the physical activity piece. What does exercise look like for Adventists, especially as they age?
Well, the CDC guidelines for adults 65 and older are really relevant here. They recommend at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week. That could be 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, plus muscle strengthening activities at least 2 days a week, and balance activities.
And what counts as moderate intensity for someone over 50?
According to the NHS guidelines, moderate intensity activity raises your heart rate and makes you breathe faster. One way to tell if you're working at the right level is if you can still talk but not sing. Think brisk walking, water aerobics, riding a bike, even pushing a lawnmower.
That's actually pretty accessible. What about the balance activities? Why are those so important after 50?
Balance becomes crucial as we age. The NHS specifically mentions that if you've fallen or are worried about falling, exercises that improve strength, balance, and flexibility will make you stronger and more confident on your feet. Simple things like walking heel to toe or standing from a sitting position can make a huge difference.
So it's not about intense gym workouts, it's about consistent, moderate movement. Now let's talk about the diet piece. What makes the Adventist approach to nutrition so effective?
About 50% of Adventists are vegetarians, with many others limiting meat consumption. But here's what's really interesting from a scientific standpoint. Recent research published in the journal Nutrients shows that vegan diets can reduce the burden of metabolic syndrome by improving insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, blood pressure, and inflammatory markers.
Inflammatory markers, that's a big deal, right? Inflammation is linked to so many age-related diseases.
Absolutely. A systematic review published in Nature found that vegan diets were associated with significantly lower levels of C-reactive protein compared to omnivores. CRP is a key inflammatory biomarker. The study showed a mean difference of minus 0.54 milligrams per L for vegans, and the association was less pronounced but still significant for vegetarians.
So the more plant-based you go, the more anti-inflammatory benefits you get?
That's what the research suggests. Plant-based diets are characterized by higher consumption of fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and soy products. This corresponds to lower intake of saturated fat and cholesterol, plus larger amounts of antioxidant micronutrients like vitamins C and E, dietary fiber, and phytochemicals.
Now, here's what I find really fascinating. These health principles didn't come from modern research. They came from Ellen White in the 1860s. How did she know?
That's one of the most remarkable aspects of this story. Ellen White promoted a vegetarian diet, regular exercise, and abstinence from harmful substances back in the 1860s. She died in 1915 at age 87, when the average life expectancy around 1900 was just 49 years old.
Wait, she lived to 87 when most people were dying at 49? That's almost double the life expectancy.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how these 19th century guidelines align perfectly with modern longevity research. The Adventist approach to health wasn't just ahead of its time, according to the research, it was prophetic.
What was Ellen White's core philosophy about health? She understood that the health of our bodies impacts the health of our minds and our spiritual health. According to Adventist.org, she saw health reform as nearly a matter of life or death. She lived during the Second Industrial Revolution when people were shifting from agricultural lifestyles to factory-driven schedules with poor working conditions. So she was responding to the health crisis of industrialization. What specific counsel did she give?
Her counsel covered physical health, advocating for fresh air, exercise, proper rest, and appropriate exposure to sunlight. She also emphasized temperance, which meant moderation and smart choices, plus diet and nutrition focused on plant-based eating. But she also addressed mental health, understanding the brain-gut connection and the benefits of positive thinking and relationships.
The brain-gut connection in the 1860s? That's incredible. Modern science is just catching up to that.
Right, and here's the biblical foundation behind it all. Adventists believe that at the fall, all three aspects of humanity's nature, physical, intellectual, and spiritual, were affected. They see Jesus as seeking to save the whole person, not just the soul.
So it's holistic health based on biblical principles. How does that translate practically?
Well, they take seriously Paul's teaching in Romans 12, 1 about presenting our bodies as living sacrifices, and in 1 Corinthians 6, 1, 9, 20 about our bodies being temples of the Holy Spirit. There's this sense of accountability to God for preserving health.
That's a pretty powerful motivator. Now let's talk about something unique to Adventists, the Sabbath. How does taking one day off per week actually impact health?
The research on this is really compelling. According to askanadventistfriend.com, an uninterrupted 24-hour period of rest has incredible physical and mental health benefits. It gives the body time to recover and relax, which is critical for healing and maintaining health.
But how does that work physiologically?
Having a weekly day of rest helps set better boundaries between work and life, preventing overwork. Overwork increases stress hormones like cortisol, which raises blood pressure and can contribute to depression, diabetes, heart attack, stroke, and digestive issues. Regular rest also strengthens the immune system.
So it's not just about spiritual renewal. There are measurable physical benefits?
Absolutely. And there's also the mental rejuvenation aspect. Jesus said the Sabbath is meant to be a blessing for human beings, not a burden, but a way to mentally refresh us. It's about doing less, not more, which is counterintuitive in our productivity-obsessed culture.
That's such a different mindset. What about community? I imagine that plays a role too.
Huge role. According to the research, Adventists often gather in small and large groups. They work together for shared causes, worship, study the Bible, and socialize. This community engagement fosters emotional well-being and provides social support, which we know is crucial for longevity.
So it's not just individual lifestyle choices, it's being part of a community that supports those choices.
Exactly. And here's something interesting. Research indicates it's a combination of factors. Their religious practices reduce stress and provide social support, while their lifestyle habits directly impact physical health. You can't separate the faith from the health outcomes.
But what about people who aren't religious? Can they still benefit from these practices?
The evidence suggests that adopting even some of their health practices can increase lifespan. You don't have to be Adventist to eat more plants, exercise regularly, or take a weekly day of rest. The physical benefits are there regardless of the spiritual motivation.
That's encouraging. Let's get practical for a minute. If someone listening is over 50 and wants to start incorporating some of these principles, where should they begin?
Start with movement. The National Institute on Aging emphasizes that physical activity is an important part of healthy aging. Even light activity like getting up to make tea, moving around your home, or walking at a slow pace counts. The key is moving rather than sitting or lying down.
And for diet changes?
You don't have to go full vegetarian overnight. Remember, about 50% of Adventists are vegetarians, while many others just limit meat consumption. Start by adding more fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and nuts to your diet. Focus on the anti-inflammatory foods.
What about the rest component? How can someone implement a Sabbath-like practice?
Pick one day a week for genuine rest. Turn off work emails, avoid stressful activities, spend time in nature, connect with loved ones. The Hebrew word Sabbath literally means to rest from labor or to cease. It's about intentionally stopping the productivity cycle.
I love that. Cease. In our always-on culture, that's almost revolutionary.
It really is. And here's what's remarkable. Ellen White was advocating for this in the 1860s when germ theory wasn't even widely accepted in America. Hand washing wasn't regularly practiced. Yet she understood that health reform was essential for experiencing the abundant life God intended.
The timing is incredible. She was essentially a public health pioneer.
Absolutely. Her work drove the development of several Adventist health institutions. They called them sanitariums back then. She understood that true evangelism includes ministry to physical needs, not just spiritual ones.
So when you step back from all this research and look at the big picture, what's the key insight here?
The key insight is that longevity isn't about one magic bullet. It's about a comprehensive lifestyle approach. The Adventist health studies show us that when you combine plant-based nutrition, regular movement, stress management through rest, and strong community support, you get remarkable health outcomes.
And what's really striking is how these principles work together synergistically.
Exactly. The anti-inflammatory diet supports the exercise. The community provides accountability for healthy choices. The Sabbath rest allows the body to recover and reduces stress hormones. It's a complete system, not isolated interventions.
Here's what this really comes down to. You don't need to be Seventh-day Adventist to benefit from these practices. The research shows that even adopting some of these principles can add years to your life and life to your years.
And the beauty is that these aren't extreme measures. We're talking about eating more plants, moving your body regularly, taking one day a week to truly rest, and connecting with community. These are accessible changes that can have profound impacts.
The Loma Linda longevity secret isn't really a secret at all. It's a blueprint that's been hiding in plain sight for over 150 years. Start with one change, whether it's adding a daily walk, eating more vegetables, or protecting one day a week for rest. Your future self will thank you. Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts. Remember, living longer isn't just about adding years to your life, it's about adding life to your years. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply rest.